Is this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kurkjian. I'm his son, Jeff Kurkjian. And Dad, it's Thanksgiving week, and we've got a family trip planned. I'm so excited to see you.
Yeah, we are going to Destin, Florida to see my oldest brother, Andy, your Uncle Andy, who goes by Panda. And we're going to have all 7 grandchildren there, all 5 years old and younger. So it's going to be complete bedlam, but it's going to be great. We're going to play golf one day. Exactly how we're going to manage that, I'm not quite sure. But we're going to eat a lot. Aunt Terry, Andy's wife, is the greatest cook ever. So I can't wait to see how great the food's going to be, even though everyone will be pitching in. So, and I can't wait to see you and Emily and McKinley. It's going to be great.
Yeah, sending up prayers for Kelly, who your daughter, my sister, is going to be here because she is due on December the, what are we at?
Is it the 25th? 24th, 25th,
something like that.
Yeah, we're taking guesses on that.
So. Yeah, so she will not be traveling, doctor's orders, rightfully so.
Right.
But she is nesting, Dad. Was this a thing when you had young kids, nesting? Are you familiar with the term?
Yeah, I think it was just doctors saying, look, you're not going on an airplane. It just doesn't make any sense. And
nesting is more of a different type of term, Dad. I'm talking about what the biological need to get your house in order. That's what nesting is all about. When a pregnant woman gets to a certain time, usually 7 or 8 months, they get into this like surge of energy, 3rd trimester, and they say, okay, I need to set up the crib. Okay, I need this room to look great. That's what Kelly's going to have the opportunity to do without the kiddos at the Thanksgiving at home. So she's going to be able to nest with mom, with Cat, grandma, in order to get the house ready. That's what nesting is.
Right. It's going to be great. No matter when we get home from this trip, Kelly's house will be completely set up for the new crib room and the new big girl room for Emma. So it will be great, Jeff. Hey, before we follow, I just want to mention something I saw the other day. I've never seen this before, Jeff. And, there's no anger on this podcast. I'm definitely too old and too short to get angry anymore. Okay. But I wasn't angry about this, but
Were you at the dump?
No, I was at the grocery store. I'm not making this up. There are 3 people in line, and the lady in front of me was paying with cash, and it was the bill was $9.15, and she had a 10. So she said, I've got 15 cents in my car. I'll be right back. So she left the line with 2 people, including me, waiting behind her. So she did not run to her car. She walked to her car. And apparently she got the 15 cents while I took my stuff and went through the self-service, which I should have done in the first place. But it looked like she was done, but she was anything but done. Jeff, is that a little bit unreasonable and a little bit inconsiderate? Yes or no?
Well, Dad, you historically, and I love you, and I've gotten a part of you in me, are slightly on the impatient side when it comes to things. So I'm glad you're bringing this and kind of auditing this to make sure you weren't in the wrong. And I can say that is exhausting. Now, I thought you were going to say, oh, I got 15 cents in the bottom of my purse. Give me a second, in which it would take the longest 30 seconds of your life. And I've been there, and we've all been there. But I would say, Dad, I get it. Pennies are no longer a thing. They're not being minted anymore, which we should talk to Jeremy Schaap about that. I'm sure he's really heartbroken. See our interview from earlier this year. But, Dad, yeah, go into the car. That's ridiculous. That is insanity.
She left the store, Jeff, for 85
insanity.
Cents. It just doesn't make any sense. And, Jeff, I'm not impatient. I just hate to wait, okay? So, all right, never mind. All right.
Classic.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what's happened in baseball this week. I mean, the offseason is filled with stuff. There are a million things to talk about. But I was intrigued by the Marcus Semien for Brandon Nimmo trade between the Rangers and the Mets. Look, Brandon Nimmo is a good player, Jeff. He's 32 years old, 25 homers, 92 RBIs, great teammate. Everybody loves him. And he's the guy, Jeff, remember, who grew up in Wyoming. And he told me once that everyone in his family is like a cowboy, and he was going to be a cowboy until he recognized that he had some baseball ability. And even though his high school was so small, he didn't even have a high school team. He ended up being a baseball player, and he's become a very good one. And they traded him. He was the Met of the longest standing on the team, and sent him to the Rangers, who are in need of an outfielder or two because they DFA'd Adolis Garcia, age 32, a bit of a surprise, a World Series hero from a couple of years ago. So Brandon Nimmo is going to be, one of their everyday outfielders, but Marcus Semien is going to be their everyday second baseman. And he won a Gold Glove last year. Jeff, I'm telling you, the lesson here is teams are starting to look at defense more and more. Remember, the Rangers won the World Series 2 years ago, in part because they didn't just have the best defensive team in baseball. They had a historically great defensive team. And the Blue Jays got as far as they did this year, in part because of an elite defense. And let's face it, Jeff, the Dodgers won the World Series because of Miguel Rojas's defense in Game 4 and the team defense. Andy Pages in Game 7. I mean, it was incredible how well those teams played.
Dad, I hate to bring up something because this is a podcast, even though we're on YouTube. I just can't get it out of my head. I think you have your polo on inside out.
No, it is on inside out. It's so bad. 68 years old, and I was wondering why it wasn't folding right.
Well, I was looking at the collar the whole time you were giving us the takeaways about the Nimmo trade, and I was like, oh, the collar's just turned in. I'm going to ask him to pop it out because we put so many pieces of the show. The whole show's on YouTube, but we put so many pieces on social media. And then I was looking at the buttons, and the buttons are facing in. Dad, listen, I don't want our listeners to worry. You are not to the point where someone needs to start dressing you every day. I think it just comes back to the impatience we spoke of earlier. Maybe you got ready just a little too quickly this morning.
Well, it was 5:30 in the morning. It was completely dark out. I'm sorry, Jeff. That's the second time I've had a terrible wardrobe malfunction that made you wonder, what is wrong with your shirt? Well, now at least we know what's wrong with this one. It's on inside out.
I did the same exact thing. I put my shorts on backwards, so the pockets... the pockets will face forward if you put them on correctly. Mine were in the back, and I went to go put my phone in the pocket, and it clanged because the pocket was facing the wrong way and clanged down my steps just the other day. So I have sympathy for you. We both moved too quickly.
All right. That's something that I need to, that's something I really need to address moving forward, Jeff.
Put it in your day-by-day book. Put shirt on correctly.
Right.
Check it off. You can circle it.
Slow down. That's what I need to do. All right. The new Angels hitting coach is Brady Anderson, who I covered with the Orioles. One of my favorite people I ever covered because he's smart, he's witty, he's funny, he's irreverent. And I just love it that he is a hitting coach now in the big leagues, because a lot of times we hire hitting coaches now who some of them didn't play very much. A lot of them didn't play in the big leagues. Brady played in the big leagues, but I'll never forget this, Jeff. Soon after he retired, or maybe he was still playing, not the point. He told me that he broke down the swing of Ted Williams and Lou Gehrig and decided that both of them had exquisite fundamental swings, which I think most people would agree. Ken Griffey Jr., Ted Williams, those might be the two most beautiful swings of all time. But Brady Anderson was interested enough way back then to take some time to look at the tape of Lou Gehrig and Ted Williams and determine that those guys had great swings. It wasn't just that they were good hitters. They were good hitters in part because they had fundamentally perfect swings. Is that kind of cool to you that a player would look back 60 years at a player?
Well, Dad, it's funny because a lot of people had said that they wanted Major League Baseball's logo to be changed to Ken Griffey Jr.'s swing. Obviously, the logo is the outline of a swing. Now, fun fact, Dad, did you know that the logo is not actually modeled after one single player? However, most believe it was somewhat modeled by
Harmon Killebrew.
That's right. Yeah. So, but people were saying it should have been Ken Griffey Jr., just like bringing basketball in here. When Kobe Bryant unfortunately passed away, they were saying, we got to change that logo to Kobe, to Kobe's jumper. But I still think I love the generic of the Major League Baseball logo. But Ken Griffey Jr., man, the way he would swing, it was like butter. Like a big stick of butter.
Right. Brady Anderson told me that Ken Griffey Jr. has the most beautifully fundamental swing ever. And again, it's an opinion, but it's hard to argue with that. Brady also hit 50 homers in a season. And he told me once that his uncle Kevin came up, because Brady's middle name is Kevin, came up with put a new recording on his phone. This is back when people had phones where you call up like a house phone. And it said something like, I'll be close on this, like Hank Aaron never did this, Eddie Murray never did this, Stan Musial never did this, but my nephew Brady Anderson hit 50 homers in a season. Well, I mean, isn't that the coolest thing that you can get on an answering machine? That's how proud he was of his nephew Brady.
That is so incredible.
Right.
Well, Dad, one player I really want to talk about is Randy Johnson.
Right. Well, Randy Johnson got his number retired by the Mariners, number 51. It does beg the question, what took them so long to do this? Now, Ichiro's 51 is also retired by the Mariners, but, we have several other cases. I have them all right in front of me. It's not important, but, Yogi Berra and Bill Dickey both wore number 8 and both had their numbers retired by the Yankees. I believe there are 8 cases like that, including with the A's, Raleigh Fingers, and Dave Stewart, both wore number 34. So Randy Johnson, number 51, well-deserved, one of the great pitchers in Mariners history. And again, most of his greatest work was done with the Diamondbacks, but he was awfully good when he was with the Mariners. And Jeff, remember, he had trouble throwing strikes early on because he's 6'10" and all that stuff. But once he figured it out, boy, he was a nightmare. I think he's the most intimidating pitcher of all time. One of the 10 greatest pitchers of all time, but maybe the most intimidating pitcher ever. As Jeff Houston, who played for the Rangers and now is a broadcaster for the Rockies, he told me about 25 years ago, he said, seriously, what's the worst thing that Michael Jordan could do to you? He can dunk on you and embarrass you. What is the worst thing Randy Johnson can do to you? He can kill you. That's the danger of playing in the major leagues.
Yeah, that's one player. We always go through this hypothetical, Dad, a million times. And we're going to have to bring back the Kurkjian quandary in 2026. And we're going to have to bring back poor Pop-Pop. I got to bring that back. All right. And today, poor Pop-Pop is the polo on Inside Out. Right. Should have just brought that one up. Poor Pop-Pop. But, Dad, we always bring this hypothetical up. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is standing in there for another pitch after seeing one from Randy Johnson. The average person is not standing up there for pitch 2 if Randy Johnson not even buzzes the tower. If he just throws one at you,
or throws one near you, that's the end of it. And again, this is the underrated part about baseball, is the courage it takes to play it and the fear that goes along with it. Nobody listens to me when I tell them that, but in this case, I never say I'm right, but I'm right about that because it is a very dangerous game and it takes tremendous courage to play it.
Yeah, and some sad news out of Major League Baseball. Yeah. And I know my father-in-law was pretty bummed about this because he's a big Padre fan. My father-in-law, Alex, former San Diego Padres pitcher, Randy Jones passed away just about a week ago.
Yeah, he was 75 years old. He won the Cy Young in 1976. Get this, Jeff. He walked 50 guys in 315 in the third innings. First off, he pitched 315 innings. No one comes close to that anymore. He had 50 walks and he had 25 complete games. So 50 years ago, he had 25 complete games. So he walked 2 guys for every complete game that he threw. Think about that for a second. That just cannot happen anymore. And the year before, 1975, he led the league in ERA 2.24, finished second in the Cy Young voting. And the lesson here, Jeff, for all baseball fans, especially for young kids out there, Randy Jones did not throw hard. In fact, he was proud of the fact that he didn't throw hard, and he could get you out in every conceivable way, change up everything. So RIP to Randy Jones. He was a really, really good pitcher.
Coming up next on Is This a Great Game or What? We're going to go on this date in baseball history. We're going to look at some baseball cards. And, of course, we will wrap things up with a Team Tim. It's all coming up next. Welcome back to Is This a Great Game or What? Okay, Dad. Let's jump in on this date in baseball history, November the 25th.
Right. In 1914, Joe DiMaggio was born. Again, my list, Jeff, nobody else's, but I've got him as the fourth greatest center fielder of all time, behind Willie Mays, Ty Cobb, Mickey Mantle. And you can switch him and Mickey Mantle whenever you want. Ken Griffey Jr.'s in that in that conversation. So, of course, is Tris Speaker and a lot of others. But Joe DiMaggio never had a bad year, Jeff. He played 13 seasons, and then he quit when he realized I can't be as great as I want to be every day. 361 homers, 369 strikeouts, never struck out 40 times in a season. And of course, in the 1941 season, he hit in 56 straight games, Jeff. He struck out 5 times during the hitting streak. No times in the final 32 games of the hitting streak. That's how great Joe DiMaggio was about bat to ball. And defensively, he was a wizard, running balls down in left center field and right center. Let's see if you can remember, Jeff. Joe DiMaggio never played in what? What did I tell you once about? He just had this rule. I'm not playing in any
old timers games. Right. And never wanted to play in those.
Why was that, Jeff?
Because he never wanted to embarrass himself, never wanted to be anything but Joe DiMaggio of his athletic prowess and his peak. Right. Never wanted anybody to see an old man in Joe DiMaggio.
Right. He wanted people to remember him streaking across the outfield, left center, right fielder, right center, making a great catch or just whistling a line drive somewhere. But it's amazing, Jeff. In retirement, he became Mr. Coffee. And as we used to joke all the time, some of the young players in the game thought Joe, connected Joe DiMaggio with Mr. Coffee more than they did with him being one of the greatest center fielders of all time. Also, Jeff, on this date, another former Yankee, Bucky Dent, was born on this date in 1951. Bucky Dent hit, of course, the famous 3-run homer in the games 163 against the Red Sox in 1978 that got the Yankees into the playoffs. It was amazing. And he was using Mickey Rivers's bat, which he told me later. And I told you this story before, Jeff. I always love this, that Bucky used to go to Mickey. Mickey was he was a wild man, but he was a great guy. And Bucky used to always go to Mickey and say, "Mick, it's September 1st, man. I got to have that playoff money. You got to get us that playoff money." And Mickey would say, yeah, I need the playoff money too. And he would play like crazy down the stretch, and the Yankees would always make the playoffs. That was Bucky Dent. I always really enjoyed being around him. And when I covered the Rangers in the 80s for the Dallas Morning News, they acquired him. And so he went from, Chicago first, then the Yankees, then he came to Texas, and it was just a storehouse of information talking to him about the game. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
I love that. And you have so many great stories from those Rangers days. We've heard a ton of those stories on the podcast.
I need to write a book about that. And last birthday, 1975, Glenn Davis was born. Glenn Davis was a really good power hitter for the Houston Astros. He retired with 192 homers. None of them was a grand slam. So he still, I believe, still holds the record for most career homers, meaning he's retired now. So he had 192 homers without ever hitting a grand slam.
Wow. Dad, well, speaking of, we actually had a listener reach out to us and ask, because they were reading one of your old books. You've written 3 now. Is This a Great Game or What? America's Game, and I'm Fascinated by Sacrifice Flies. But they were asking, Tim, When are we going to come out with another book? Do you have a formal announcement you'd like to make right now?
I have no formal announcement. Jeff, I've got 3 grandchildren and more on the way. So I'm going to have to bide my time here. Jeff, when I get to 50 years in baseball, I hope this doesn't come across as self-serving. I have every intention of writing about my 50 years in this beautiful game. But that's like 5 years from now. So
Wait a minute. You mean 150 years, right? Because you passed 50 a long time ago.
Yeah, it's really funny, Jeff.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. To. So that's I don't know. Hopefully I'll write something before then, but we'll see about that. I need to write another book. That's the greatest, most satisfying thing I do in this business is write a book and then people go out and buy it. And then they read it. That takes a commitment, Jeff, to do that, as opposed to just sitting on your couch and watching baseball tonight. It doesn't take much. And I love it that they're doing that. But a book is a different story. And there is no better feeling.
No pun intended.
Yeah, there is no better story for a writer or day for a writer than when the box of books arrives at your house and your name's on it. It's pretty cool.
That is pretty awesome. All right. Well, we'll be waited on bated breath. 5 years. The countdown begins today. Best of luck. All right, Dad. 3 cards in the bathroom. You've got 3 cards that you grab from your basement bathroom that's all baseball decorated. Who are we going to hear from today?
Well, the first one I picked out was Tom Foley. It was good. Yeah, utility infielder, Expos, other teams, and he was a coach for years with the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm still surprised he never managed in the big leagues because I thought he would be really good at it. But he told me once, you know how much I love ambidexterity, Jeff. Tom Foley was an infielder, a second baseman, shortstop mostly. So he's right-handed thrower, obviously, but he played quarterback in high school and he threw a football left-handed. Which wow. I still can't get over that. And on at least 1 year on the Rays team, he had Travis Lee, their first baseman, who was a left-handed thrower in baseball, but he played quarterback in high school and he threw a football right-handed. Now you're going to have to explain to me, Jeff, how, with those motions being very similar, that on the same team, we had guys who threw footballs and baseballs with different arms. I don't get it.
Well, I kind of liken it to it might be easier. And hear me out, because I know a lot of buddies of mine who were good baseball players who picked up golf later, like either late teens or early 20s, and couldn't quite figure it out because it's not similar enough where they're kind of hacking at it like they're going for a ball out of the zone. Versus who did we just run into at the ALS United Mid-Atlantic event, who was a great lefty, but golf's righty, a former Philly, right, Dad?
Greg Gross.
Greg Gross. That was right.
Right. Greg Gross was a good left-handed hitter and plays golf right-handed because it's mostly a right-hander's game. I love that. It's like Uncle Andy. We're going to play golf with him in Florida this week. He was a really good left-handed hitting catcher at Catholic University, and he plays golf right-handed. And he told me he tried it left-handed and he couldn't, which doesn't make any sense to me. So that was pretty good. All right, Jeff.
Who else?
Second card is Mike Morgan. Mike Morgan's one of my favorite guys that I ever covered. I was on the beat in Baltimore at the Sun when the Orioles acquired him. He pitched for 12 different teams, and he had a really great sinker, which he developed later in his career. But when they brought him to the big leagues, the Oakland A's did, when he was 18 years old out of a high school in Las Vegas. So he gets to the major leagues and he's talking to Jim Essien, Armenian, by the way, but, an old school catcher who looks at this 18-year-old kid and says, listen, kid, whatever finger I put down, that's what I want you to throw. And Mike Morgan looks at Jim Essien and he goes, well, you're only going to need one finger because I only throw one pitch, fastball. That's it. But that just goes to show you, Jeff, in the late 70s, this is how things were done. If you had a great arm, sometimes they would rush you to the big leagues. Now, of course, you got to go through 10,000 obstacles and show everyone you have 10 pitches before you get a chance to pitch in the big leagues. Mike Morgan, and they rushed him. They should have never done that. But he pitched in the big leagues at age 18. Then he got sent back to the minor leagues and ended up having a pretty nice career with 12 different teams.
You know what's really funny, Dad, is he actually went to Valley High School in Las Vegas.
Right.
You know who else went to Valley High School in Vegas?
No.
Greg Maddux.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
That is so interesting. And I know when Mike, and please don't anybody take any of this the wrong way. Mike Morgan comes to town and he's out with the PR guy making his rounds to go to all the TV stations about, hey, here's the newest Oriole pitcher. So he's explaining to one of the PR guys. PR guy says, so what do you like to do? He goes, well, I love to hunt, and I love to hunt coyotes, but I hunt them like in my car. I drive through the woods hunting coyotes. And the PR guy is going like this, like he's shaking his head, like, yeah. And Mike Morgan looks at him and goes, do you do that too? And the PR guy said, no. I was just agreeing with you. I wasn't saying that I hunt coyotes while driving a car through the woods. So
I just had nothing else to say, but yeah. Wow.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Wow. All right, last card belongs to Brett Butler, one of the most amazing players that I've ever covered, Jeff. He's listed at 160 pounds. There is no way he weighed 160 pounds, but he was the best bunter in baseball, maybe the best bunter, well, certainly in the modern era. Rod Carew is the only bunter I've seen better than Brett Butler, but Brett Butler is definitely second. Jeff, he had 245 bunt hits. At least that's what he told me.
Wow.
He had 42 bunt hits in one season, 1992. The bunt is coming back a little bit, Jeff. I'm thrilled to say. And TJ Friedel of the Reds had 11 bunt singles in 2025. That's encouraging. It's not 42, but Brett Butler told me that and again, I'm just quoting him, he had 286 bunts that he put in play in which he was thrown out, and 245 bunt hits. So that when you add the two, that works out to a 46% of the time he puts a bunt in play, he gets a hit. Does that sound pretty high to you?
Well, also considering, I would assume some of them were purposeful sacrifice bunts.
No,
right?
It's different. It's different than sacrifice hits. What I've always objected to sacrifice hit, Jeff, it's misleading to call it a sacrifice hit because you just assume it's a hit when it's not.
Right.
It's a sacrifice bunt. You move a guy along, you don't get an at bat, all that stuff. The point is, Brett Butler was great at this, and when he was a hitting coach in the big leagues, he would tell his really young, fast guys. He told D. Gordon. D. Gordon was a good player. You know D. Gordon.
Yeah.
But he said to D, who was really fast, he said, you should bunt more. He said, I bunted 46% of the time that I put a bunt in play, I got a hit. And D. Gordon said, well, I can't do that. I don't want to give up an at bat. And Brett Butler looks at him and goes, wait a second. You can hit 460 if you bunt. And you're hitting, 280. What would you rather hit, 460 or 280? It's a compelling case, but he really, really worked at it. So as I told you, Rod Carew was an absolute magician. And Brian Little was a great bunter. Brian Little wasn't a very good hitter, but he was a great bunter. This was kind of mean, and I don't mean to be mean to Brian Little because he's one of my favorite people. But when he came to the plate, Bobby Valentine, the always mischievous Bobby Valentine, would yell out at his defenders, watch out, he might swing away. Like that's how often he bunted. So yes.
That is incredible, Dad. Well, I love 3 cards in the bathroom. We'll get more cards next week. Keeping in mind that next week also we're going to be talking a little bit about the Hall of Fame because it'll be a big vote coming up. So we're going to talk and cover all the Hall of Fame stuff next week here on the podcast, going every single Tuesday for Is This a Great Game or What, Dad? What has become a hit on this podcast, Dad, this year especially, is Team Tim. So I'm hoping with Thanksgiving this week, you have a Team Tim Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, it was not easy, Jeff. And there are a few stretches in here. You have to think about what, Thanksgiving means, but you can't get, too corny about it because there's no one named Thanks and there's no one named Giving either. You get my point. All right. So our catcher is Paul Cook because we cook.
Good.
Right. First baseman is Mark Grace, because in a lot of houses they say grace before they eat.
Perfect.
Second baseman is Nap Lajoie.
Take a nap after a big meal.
Right. Third baseman is pie trainer because most people are having pumpkin pie. Our shortstop, even though he barely played shortstop, he was more of a third baseman, was Chuck Dressen, Dressen. But if you say it real fast, it sounds like dressing.
Yeah.
Of course, our primary outfielder is Turkey Stearns.
You need him.
Matt Holliday is another outfielder because, of course, Thanksgiving is a holiday. And Stuffy Stewart is one of our outfielders. I don't know who he is, but I looked up Stuffy. There were a few other Stuffies, but they didn't play the outfield, so that's how I ended up. And I must say, not bragging about this, my favorite is the former Royals pitcher Jimmy Gobble. So,
no, he's not real.
He's real, Jeffrey. So, yes, I got such a kick out of Jimmy Gobble when he came up. And, yes, he should have been the first guy I told you about on the all Thanksgiving team. But he's the last guy, pitcher Jimmy Gobble.
Wow. From Bristol, Tennessee, went to Bristol High School in Virginia. That is so crazy. I love that. You know, Bristol, Dad, side note, when I drove to Nashville, this was 2 years ago for the Country Music Awards. I was just there a week ago. We flew, but I drove with my buddy Justin to crash the CMAs, and we stayed in Bristol, which is like the coolest town ever because it's divided on the main street. Half of the street on one side is Tennessee and the other half is Virginia. So if you walk across the street to a restaurant or a bar, you're jumping the state line. How neat is that?
That is cool. And Jeff, you never even told me, how did all your interviews go at the Country Music Festival Awards, whatever?
You're getting there. The CMAs, Country Music Awards. It was great. Dad, you know, you told me I probably interviewed 45 different artists, and you asked me to talk to one of them, and he was the first guy to show up.
Luke Combs. You spoke to Luke Combs.
First guy that showed up in the first booth, and I asked him, you know, we're there from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., Dad. I mean, it's rapid fire interviews. We have our booth set up. It's exhausting, but it's the best time in the world for me as a country music broadcaster to be able to do this. But I looked at him and I said, Luke, it's like 9:05 a.m. and you're the first one here. And he says, I'm a dad now. I'm up so early all the time. And I've never related more to an artist before than all of the dads were on the floor like before 10 in the morning. Because he said, I've been up since 5:30 with the kids.
Of course, we all are. Was he wearing a black jacket or not?
No black jacket this time.
How about that? Me remembering a lyric from one of his songs, huh?
I'm really proud of you, Dad. We're going to have to bring you to a Luke Combs concert one of these days.
Did you ask him the last time he dunked a basketball? Because that's what we ask everyone that comes on this podcast, even Jeremy Schaap.
Yeah, we asked them all.
Right. It's a great question because there's no telling the answer you're going to get from that. I'm sure you didn't ask any country music stars about that, right?
Well, last time I talked to Riley Green, I asked about Riley Green of the Detroit Tigers. So, I talk a little baseball when I get a chance. But most of the time, these guys are fans of the Braves. And, being that I am a Phillies fan living outside Philadelphia, I try not to bring baseball up too much because I don't want to upset anyone.
Totally understand. Well, great job, Jeff. I'm going to go change my shirt now, okay? And just don't tell Mom, okay?
That's okay. It's not like this podcast is going anywhere. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And as always, thanks for being a part of our family.
Jimmy Gobble.